Now let us begin our class on the wish-fulfilling treasury. We're currently on the 5th chapter of the wish-fulfilling treasury. In the 5th chapter, the main content we're going to cover is on the kalpa of duration. Throughout the whole text, we will learn about the formation, duration, degradation, and empty kalpas, and the reasons behind each. The teachings of Yogacara Bhumi Shastra is very similar to the teachings given by Longchenpa over here. Previously, we've already covered how the human beings descend from the immeasurable numbers of years of lifespan to 10 years, and then from 10 years ascending. And then in the textual outline of Mipa Rinpoche, according to him, we are going to look at the kalpa of duration and the various differences of the kalpa of durations, which includes the general explanation and the specific explanation. In terms of the general explanation, as we know how the human beings started to live in this world, it is not just a world that is filled with animals, rather it is a human world. And this world is different than the other realms. In the duration kalpa, some of the other beings of the 6 realms, their ways of living, the ways of taking rebirth are rather very different. There are a variety of different ways of living, of taking rebirth. And this teaching is not just a teaching that is purely based in the Buddhism theories. Rather, it is through the Buddhist point of view to explain the worldly phenomena. Therefore, many people felt that this is such a breakthrough, and they've developed this revolutionary view after studying wish-fulfilling treasury, because I believe the majority of us studied the Darwinian's point of view, or the partial Darwinian's point of view about the origin of human beings, the origin of world, and the world value, and the whole value system is rather already quite set in that materialistic perspective. Rather, after studying this text, many people felt that they've already changed a lot of their point of view, because wish-fulfilling treasury not only talks about the Sutrayana, it also talks about the Vajrayana aspect, also talks about how the worldly theories and philosophy, and explains the various things that exist in the world. So many of you who are quite studious felt that this is really interesting. So such a text is rather quite rare. Today we are going to look at the various ways of sentient beings live in the kalpa of duration. In the auto commentary of Longchenpa, there are lots of theories or lots of explanations. So today we will mainly explain the verses based on the auto commentary. And after explaining it, I'm sure you will get more of a fresh understanding or fresh perspective. So in this particular chapter, we will talk about the variety of the different phenomena in the duration kalpa. There is the 6 realms and the 4 types of birth, 6 foundations, 10 times, 17 actions, 14 provisions, and 8 types of activities. It's raining outside, isn't it? It feels very comfortable when it's raining. But what's not comfortable is that that because of the rain, we don't have electricity anymore. At the beginning, I was really happy when it was raining, but since because of the rain, we don't have electricity, I've remembered it is said that as long as there is impermanence, it is defiled. As long as it is defiled, it is not peace. It's really wonderful that it's raining because it's been so dry recently. However, it interrupted our electricity. Anyhow, over here, the first one we're going to talk about is about the 6 realms. And then we'll talk about the 4 births. The 6 realms are well known: the celestial, the non-celestial beings, human beings, the animals, and then the hungry ghost, as well as the hell realm beings. And then the 4 types of birth, as we know, the ones that's born from egg, from womb, from moisture, from emanation. The kinds of sentient beings such as the Garudas and swans and Hurons, they are born from eggs. And then some of the Maras, Yakshas, and Nagas, they're also born from eggs. Some of them, some of those categories of sentient beings also are born from eggs. And then in terms of born from heat and moisture, from wood and from rocks even. Sometimes we see that there are different insects, flying ants and moths. All of those are born from moist and heat. Some of them may seem to be hatched from a little egg as well. In terms of birth of emanation, birth from emanation, there is the Pamasambhava, of course, and then Aryadeva. Majority of them are they were born from emanation. They already had all the 6 roots, and some of them didn't have the 6 roots at the beginning of the birth. Majority of them are the pure bodhisattvas who were emanated from the Pure Land. Also, of birth from emanation, such as sentient beings of hell realm, as well as sentient beings of the celestial beings, and some animals, and some preta ghosts. So, in the past, as we've already also talked about, majority of the people at that time were born from emanation. Oh, we don't have electricity from the generator anymore either. Also, some human beings were born from eggs, such as the ones that was born around the time of the Buddha. In the sutra, it is recorded that a woman who was born, who gave birth to eggs, to 32 children. There's also King Merdata. He could be, his birth could be considered as a birth from moist. There's another sutra, the sutra on the Amarapali Jivaka Sutra. The mother of the Dr. Jivaka, whose name is Amarapali, she was born from a tree called Amarapali tree. Some said that she was born from a lotus, and there are different ways, different descriptions. That is also a type of emanation. Bimbisara, the king Bimbisara gave the name of Amarapali to her. So she could be considered as someone who was born from emanation, or maybe could be also considered as a birth from moist. Not sure if that is considered as a moist and heat as well. The sentient beings from the celestial realm as well as the hell realm are born from emanation. Except the celestial beings take rebirth in the form of emanation through their merit, and the hell realm beings is because of their vice, their negative karma. So not necessarily all the emanation births are good. taking the emanation birth to the celestial realm and to the Sukhavati is, of course, very good, and taking the emanation birth to the hell realm is not good. There are all kinds of sentient beings taking rebirth in various ways. According to the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra and some other Shastras also, it states that maybe this birth takes the birth in this world through a womb, and the next birth maybe through moist, and then the next may be emanation, the next may be egg, and in samsara will keep taking rebirth again and again in various ways. For example, maybe in this lifetime, I am taking rebirth in this desire realm, and the next birth I may take rebirth in form realm, and then maybe next one in the formless realm, and then into desire realm again. So it kept on going back and forth in various realms in different ways. And our body also would take various forms throughout these kinds of rebirth. That is why, as sentient beings, sometimes we have good thoughts, sometimes we have bad thoughts, sometimes we have the habitual tendencies of the Mara, sometimes they have the habitual tendencies of the animals, of the celestial beings. And we have all various kinds of habitual tendencies because of our myriads of past lives, and because of the various kinds of habitual tendencies that we've cultivated from the previous lifetimes. Therefore, there are all kinds of seeds of habitual tendencies planted in the sentient being's alaya, and once the seed got matured, then we will take rebirth as hell realm beings or celestial beings or the asuras. That is why the bodhisattvas with clairvoyance with the divine eye, they would be able to see the different complexity of taking rebirth. So our birth and death is unlike how some of the people would make the prediction by saying that, oh, you had a so and so previous life, and your previous life is always your previous life like such. No, you shouldn't think in such a way. Our previous life is very complex, and our future is also very complex. They have many potentials and many possibilities within this vast wilderness of samsara. Each of us, after our death, it's very difficult for us to know what our future would be, other than the noble ones who have such kind of clairvoyance. Indeed, this birth and death and this samsara is not as simple as we imagined, as we try to fathom. It is rather very complex. In Abhidharma, out of the 10 chapters, the 4th chapter, I believe, it talks about the negative, positive, and intertwined karma, where it discusses how and when people would reap the fruition of their causes and conditions. There are lots of concepts that talks about it, lots of teachings on that. Anyhow, we should know that causes and fruition are indeed very complex. Previously, we talked about the 4 types of birth. In the Buddhism teaching, the 4 births, though it is not as detailed categorized as the current worldly knowledge, but the 4 types indeed has already covered how all the sentient beings would take rebirth. Though that the biologists would divide it into different categories, but I think the general categories are still the same. Now, the 6 types of foundations are the ground. There's the foundation of abode, foundation of dwelling, foundation of food, foundation of enjoyment, foundation of light, and foundation of the bodily dwelling. There are the 6. According to Longchenpa, foundation of human beings is as we already previously discussed, the wheel of wind, wheel of earth, and wheel of water. So all of those large ground of the world is the foundation of the boat. And then in terms of the dwelling, is a bit smaller than that. It is the places where it could shelter us, such as houses and buildings and so on. The ones that's built by human beings, or the ones that are manifested because of merit for celestial beings, such as the Sukhavati and so on, or for the hell realm beings out of the lack of merit. There are all kinds of environment that would host them as well. For human beings, each of us, we need a room, and in the room we need a window, and we need a door, we need a lock. And when we have enough merit, we don't need to build houses. For example, taking rebirth in celestial realm. And right at the time, I talk about that we don't need to build a house. The light just naturally light up now. Now, the next one is foundation of food. So the foundation of food for human beings are mainly the segmented or the kind of meals that we take in different time periods, as well as the 5 grains and all of those things that we grow, those kinds of resources. And then also there's the foundation of speech. Whatever we would express, the other party should be able to understand it, should be able to comprehend it. For example, if we were to speak English, and then the other person should be able to understand it, and then if we were to speak the language of the animals, and then the animals or the other party should be able to understand this type of language. The next one is a foundation of enjoyment, such as our clothing, our beddings, and things like such. In terms of our enjoyment, some prefer their beddings to be softer, some to be more stiff, and some enjoy to eat more, some less, and some enjoy to wear more, and some wear thinner. People are like such. The other day, I made the remark that if the Khenpos and Khenpos enjoy to keep a clean environment, then the disciples would also enjoy to spend time to make the environment clean. But if the Khenpos and Khenpos do not, then obviously the disciples won't spend time to doing so as well. It is such as making tsatsas and making modes. It is a very natural metaphor. Even in the worldly sense, if the worldly teachers enjoy spending time on makeup and dress up, then the students would naturally follow the teacher. If the teacher enjoys to play basketball, then the students would naturally also enjoy doing so, enjoy to engage in sports. If the teacher tend to have more aggression, then the students tend to also have more aggression. And if the teacher is more compassionate, the students would tend to be more compassionate and gentle. The other day I went to some of the classroom and took a turn over there. Some of your classrooms, the whole environment seems to be fused with suffering for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe because of the causes and conditions also differ. Now, the foundation of enjoyment is mostly related to our provisions. And then there's the foundation of light. The light source such as the sun and the moon and lamps. Do we have electricity now on the outside? In the afternoon, after thunder, we lost our light, and then we had another thunder, and then our light came back. Anyhow, the foundation of light still very much reliant on our current infrastructure. But when I first came here at the very beginning, we didn't have any of those kinds of foundation of light. We only had the natural sources of light, such as the sun and the moon. And other than that, we rather would have to practice diligently in darkness. But nowadays, when we have such wonderful lights, I'm not sure if you're still diligent. I've made the remark that some of the luxurious restaurants sometimes would purposely dim the lighting, and people would feel that it has such kind of romantic atmosphere, and they feel that it is very luxurious, maybe because our value is very different. The next one is the foundation of the dwelling of the body. In order for our body to be nourished and to abide in this world, we need 4 types of meals. There's the meals in sections, and there's meals through touch, and meals through thoughts, and meals through consciousness. According to Abhidharma, the teaching is very similar to this one's. Now, the meals that we have are considered as meals in sections because we eat at the different times. And there are the meals, for example, would be given to the offsprings through the mother's wings, for example, for the insects, that is. And there are the ones such as fish and shrimp. As long as the mother still kept the offsprings in her mind, then the offsprings would be able to survive. Also, during the time of famine, if the parents were to tell us that we have still lots of food, we will enjoy them later, then we would keep thinking about that there is food, and then people will not die because of hunger. Then there is the meal through thoughts, such as these kinds of meals are for the beings in the formless realm. It is very much reliant on a very subtle consciousness and very subtle dhyana power to survive. According to Shrangama Sutra, where also talks about the 12 categories of sentient beings, and all of them need meals. Even the formless beings, they would consume certain kinds of meal, that is through a very subtle type of dhyana. The beings such as us, the human beings, sometimes we have to go through a lot of troubles. We need to eat the segmented meals in the morning, noon, and afternoon, and we have to eat a certain type of meal as well. It shouldn't be too cold or too hot or too spicy or too salty, and so on and so forth. It is better for you to know how to cook for yourself rather than rely on the cooks over here, because it's very difficult for the cook to satisfy everyone's preference of flavors. Sometimes when I look at human beings, we have so many afflictions because of our desire and our attachment. Some of the Mahā'ati practitioners, after reaching to a level of realization, they would be able to consume whatever meals. Living in this world, the human beings and the animals had to eat different things in order to survive. But what's most pitiful are the vicious carnivores. Those animals had to kill the other sentient beings in order to sustain their own life. especially the wolves and leopards and tigers, they had to prey upon the other animals and eat the fresh flesh of the other animals in order to sustain their own lives. So their past karma must be extremely negative. The human beings compared to those carnivores are a bit better, but the young people nowadays live in large cities. I think it is quite pitiful that they would also choose to eat all kinds of live animals, or they would kill lots of animals to survive, or they would enjoy rather those kinds of eating those animals, such as fish and shrimp and lobster and all kinds of things. To the extent that whenever they see different animals, their first thought would be, "Can I eat that?" How pitiful is that? Rather than generate the thought of compassion at the first thought, some of the human beings would think that, "Can I eat that? Can I harm that sentient beings?" Which is similar to the Rakshas and Yakshas. Whenever they see human beings, their first thought is also, "Can I eat that?" Some of the sentient beings such as insects and magpies, whenever we look at them, their body is rather very small. Compared to that, human beings as us, we should also be able to choose to eat food that is pure. On one hand, I understand that some of the monastics or the lay practitioners feel quite ashamed that we don't spend enough time in practice. And whenever I ask them about their practice, they would say that I'm so ashamed of myself. I'm so embarrassed that I'm not practicing enough. Almost everybody says that they're quite embarrassed about the lack of practice. But on the other, I think we need to contemplate that because we practice on this path, we actually would be able to purify lots of the negative deeds that we accumulated from the past lifetimes. And at least we don't kill sentient beings to eat their flesh anymore. Some of us, after taking monastic vow and after taking the precepts of lay practitioners, though that we don't practice as well as the great masters of the past, but on the other, we have encountered the correct Dharma and we avoided already creating lots of negative deeds in this lifetime. So we should be a little happy about that as well. Now, the next one, we're going to talk about the 10 types of time. In Buddhism, we talk about different types of time. We talk about kalpas and the great kalpa, the medium kalpa, and then the medium kalpa, and then the year and month and half month and day and night and instant and moment, and as well as the 4 seasons. There are all kinds of duration of time. In terms of kalpa, there's the great kalpa, medium kalpa, and every year has 12 months, and a month has 30 to 31 days, and sometimes 28, and then we have the day and night as well. That is depending on the sunrise and sunset. On top of that, we have moments. There's the shortest moment, and then there's or the instance, and then the moments, and the moments of completing an act. In terms of an instance, it is the instance that you are aware of something. For example, at the time of snapping your finger could be dissected into 60 such instances. And then 120 of such instances is called a moment. According to Abhidharma and according to the Gateway to Knowledge, there are lots of clear explanations about it. The next one is called moment of completing an act, which can be short and can be long as it completes that act, such as coughing, moving, such as speaking, such as snapping a finger. It could be that short, or it could be really long. The longest one is the time from the Buddha first made the aspiration until he finally realized the unexcited realization of enlightenment, which can also be considered as one moment of completing an act. Or it could be the three asamkhyas of kalpas, or it could be the summer, winter, spring, and fall. There are lots of concepts in this world can be calculated or can be included in the three types of moments. Nowadays, we use a different types of category or different types of description. We talk about seconds, minutes, and hours, but it could be stated simply in such a way or categorized in such a way. This particular categorized method of time has been expounded about 1200 years ago, and this is really quite wonderful, because whenever we look at the great philosophy and teachings from the great masters of the past, we shouldn't consider that they are very old and therefore they are not as progressive and not as developed. We shouldn't consider in such a way, because in terms of their morality, their value, and their wisdom, from whichever aspects of understanding and whichever aspect of observation, they are far more advanced than we are. From a different aspect, we can see that the antiques nowadays from the past, from the Qing Dynasty, Yuan Dynasty, Tang Dynasty, they are so much more expensive than what we have nowadays. If we were to agree to the evolution point of view, then all those antique artifacts shouldn't cost more, because that's when people were more close to the animals. Then how could those periods of times of antique artifacts be more expensive than the so-called more advanced human beings nowadays? The human beings value more of those things that's made about 2,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. People nowadays feel that, it must be very expensive. This is a fossil. This is discovered through the archaeological discovery. So it is a demonstration of how the history changed. Well, it could be considered in such a way as well, but I think it's definitely worth some of the contemplation upon it. The next one is the 17 types of activity. The human beings, we have parents and we have the offsprings and also spouse, servants, or maids, or employees, or workers, or friends, and ministers, and relatives. So all of those, as well as we need to rely on working in fields, family, and merchandise, as well as all kinds of activities to accumulate one's career or to develop one's profession. Nowadays, we would call it in different names, but in the past, the concept is the same. In the past, people would value more about farming. For a period of time, it was very popular to convert the farm fields to forests. But nowadays, I think because of the lack of crops, people are cutting down the forests and started to make them into farmlands again. In Tibet, we had lots of fields that used to be thistles and thorns, but nowadays we had to pull away all of those thistles and thorns so that we can grow barleys and wheat. Sometimes it's necessary. This is really a demonstration of the continuous development of human society. The other day, two couples told me that he enjoyed sleeping towards the west, and some said that, and then after 2 days, he said that he actually preferred to sleep towards the east. So if the sleeping also needs such kinds of adaptation, same as life and same as the changes in history. Now, those are the 17 types of activities, and then the 14 types of provisions, which are very similar to what we have nowadays, which includes the food, beverage, clothing, chariot, and adornments, and dances, as well as entertainments, which is probably similar to the stand-up comedy that we have nowadays. Music, fragrance, flower adornments, flower garlands, as well as perfumes. Some of the perfumes nowadays, not only they don't smell good, they smell quite strange. And then all kinds of vessels and lights, also the enjoyment of men and women. And then the 8 types of actions. The 8 types of actions, I think, probably would differ based on the different countries and different ethnics and from different locations and different customs, which is their clothing and meal, as well as the service provided by body and sleeping and the sexual activity and the functions, as well as general activity, which includes the function and power, as well as its performance, such as the speech, such as different things that they would speak. Sometimes we would encounter different minority ethnics, let it be the Miao ethnic group or Zhang Dynasty group. Each of the different ethnic groups would speak different language, and their expressions are very different. They're same to their speech. Sometimes we hear their language to be very similar. They would be able to understand each other, though that we don't understand it. I'm very good at imitating languages. This is to be able to speak with all kinds of languages. The sentient beings indeed have all kinds of speech, not only human beings, but the animal realm as well, the animals as well. The next verse talks about the 10 worldly activities, 3 speeches, 22 misdeeds, 63 sentient beings, 8 periods of time, and 4 types of entering into womb. These particular teachings are very similar to the teachings given in the Yogacarya Bhumi Shastra, except some of the segments are a little bit different. But the 10 types of worldly activities, including giving speech, chattering, and different kinds of leisure, their preference in their hobbies. Everyone's very different in terms of their hobbies. Some likes music, and some good food, some chatting, some practicing meditation, and some would enjoy all kinds of violent activities, and some and so on and so forth. Other than that, there are the worldly activities such as marriage, and working for the livelihood as well as borrowing and lending. So all of such kinds of daily activity. Also, the overeating. Sometimes we would eat at really late in the night, or when people are already really full but kept on eating further. That is overeating. And in terms of language, there are the three types. One is the language that is in accordance with the correct Dharma, the other one not. The other languages of the other categories, the language of the correct Dharma, which are the languages given by noble ones, for example, the ones that would be able to dispel the obstacles of our mind, or the kinds of language that would promote contentment and decrease desire. I think whatever kinds of speech that you are more familiar to could definitely show your leaning. For example, if you were to contemplate and practice on compassion and practice more on renunciation, then you would talk more on those kinds of topics. For example, if we were to be very much leaning to think about construction, then in terms of topic, you would talk more about that. Also, speech is a great manifestation of your mind, because if your mind is kind, then your speech is kind, and vice versa. That is why I asked people to practice patience. I've noticed that many of you are practicing patience. Why is that? It is because when you make observation of your own mind stream, through this kind of observation, you will be able to make changes. Also, our languages have such kind of close correlation to our activities, and it has such close correlation to our mind. So whenever we talk about all the defiled things, then our mind would be entangled in that. And if we were to talk about the neutral state, or the things that doesn't really matter much, for example, oh, it's raining, it is healing, it is neither virtuous or vice. Those are very much based on your habitual tendencies. Some countries don't really. In China, we would ask, "Have you eaten yet?" as a way to greet each other. But in other countries, they don't usually ask that. They would say that, "Mind your own business," or maybe you would buy me a meal.
这样的就是所以说这个就这个是讲到这个刚才就是三种语言嘛，其实语言
Those are the three types of speech, three types of language. There are all kinds of speech that could be further categorized, but the three general categories are as such. Whenever we speak, we can make observation of our speech. Out of 1 day of time, how long did you spend to speak of the language that's virtuous, and how many of that are vice and how many of them are neutral? We need to make observation ourselves. The next one is the 22 types of erroneous actions. According to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, the translation is aggressive actions rather than erroneous actions. Why is that? It is because the Chinese translation is explained as such kind of actions would make others aggressive, or would contribute to the condition so that others would be aggressive. But over here, let's use the erroneous actions. The first of the 22 is deceiving activities, and this kind of deceiving activities is more while making the Buddha statues and using the false numbers and so on is more related to the numbers and weighting, the weighing of the weight of certain things. The next one is practice practice misdeeds or practice the wrong activities, and the second one is conflict. A third one, review others' faults, also arguments and practice misdeeds and use of vulgar language to slander others, and quarrels and aggression. Some of the aggression are more extended to the exterior and to the others, and then threatening the others. I just recently heard something that is about threatening, which is a very negative thing. I heard that someone who's a manager in the institute, and he told one of the managing authority, saying that some of the stupas that we have, the sun and the moon sign has already fallen, which is not auspicious. And the Khenpo said that, well, it's probably best for you to let us to construct it, because this is not auspicious. It is not auspicious for you either. And the authority said that, well, I didn't take those signs down, so though that really has nothing to do with me. It doesn't matter how much you would threaten me because of it. I am not going to let you to mend those signs on them. Therefore, we can see that threatening is not necessarily a good action. Over here, it also says that restraining others, incarceration, imprisoning, as well as severing, cutting, or being calculating and scheming, temptation, cruelty, inaction, and lying, as well as vicious vows. The vicious vows is something that we sometimes would say, if I don't do so and so, let me be slashed by the flash, the lightning, or let me be killed in a car accident, and so on and so forth. We shouldn't say that. According to the sutra, it is said that once a person said that I often would serve a monastic, but sometimes when he's not here, I made the vicious vow that you are so disrespectful. You didn't even tell me that you're going to receive alms from the others. Therefore, if I were to ever serve you again, may I cut off my hands. And for such kind of vicious vow, I didn't have hands for 500 lifetimes. So it is really not necessary for us to even speak of those kinds of vicious vows. In Tibet, we would say that it is not good to use the three jewels as part of your vows often or habitually. In Lhasa, people are very habituated in saying that, oh, since Joe Rinpoche knows that I didn't go, Joe Rinpoche knows that I did go, so on and so forth. Joe Rinpoche is the Buddha statue in Lhasa. That's the very renowned Buddha statue over there. So they would use Joe Rinpoche as their witness, as their reliance to make those vows, but it is not very auspicious. Because if you kept on saying that or using that as your habitual fillers, then sometimes if you are not speaking the truth, so sometimes you don't fulfill those vows that you make, it would become a vicious or a negative deed. According to Chakmei Rinpoche, he said that if you were to make vows in front of the three jewels, but later violated that vow, then such kind of misdeeds would be quite grave. Therefore, if you were to make those vows in front of the three jewels and ask your teacher to be a witness, then you should better fulfill those. In different places, there are different customs. For example, people around different places, they would say that, oh, I didn't steal this, I didn't do that. The so-and-so monastery would be my witness. They would make such kind of vows, but it is not very good to do that as a in a habitual way, because we don't want to create negative deeds without being aware of it. Now, the next one talks about the 63 types of sentient beings. According to Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, I believe it was 62 types rather than 63, but that is because the Bardo beings and the non-celestial beings did not separate those two. So there are the beings of the hell realm, of hungry ghosts, of the of the animal realm, and of celestial beings, the human beings, the Asuras, and the Bardo beings, as well as the kings and merchants, the citizens, the Brahmins, the 4 types of castes, also men, women, eunuchs, and one could also divide the different types of sentient beings by the roots. For example, the ones with virtuous roots, vicious roots, neutral roots, as well as divided by the capacity, and one can divide them in the categories based on their stature, such as monastic or lay practitioner. Also, the kinds of practitioners displayed with aesthetic practices, and could be divided by the ones with precepts and without precepts, and the ones did not hold precepts. Also, the bhikshus, bhikshunis, as well as the training novices, and the shramanas, shramaneras, the upasikas, upasakas, the trupans, and the various kinds of managers holding different activities, holding different positions, or in managing different activities. There are the ones who just took the vow, and the ones who are the elderly or the abbots, and the ones in the middle. So there are different types of categories according to their stature and the time of taking precepts as well. Within the Sangha, there are the ones who are residents and who are the visiting monastics, and there are the managers as well. In classrooms, I think I've mentioned for a few times, whenever we need to elect the managers, I think it would be better to find the ones who studied precepts and who's been ordained for a long period of time, because they would have a better understanding of the precepts and would be able to make the observation of the whole Sangha. Also, when it comes to finding or hiring new technicians or people who have different types of professions, such as doctors or working in our restaurants. Of course, we need their professional skills, so sometimes it is a little bit difficult to fulfill both of the requirements of profession and being ordained for a long period of time. But as a manager, a general manager of the Sangha, it would be the best for us to find the actual bhikshus and bhikshunis who've received those vows, because shramaneras rather have not received the full precepts yet. Therefore, sometimes their activities, their actions are not very appropriate or in accord to the precepts. I've also met some managers. If the managers do not carry out their actions in accord to the precepts, then it is very difficult for the others to practice or to carry out their actions in accord with the precepts. If you were to move around and you were to wiggle around for the whole class, then such kind of person should not be a role model. And usually whenever I notice if a person can't even sit for an hour, then I would ask, well, how long have you been here? And if the person would tell me that I've been here for a year now, and my Kimmel said that I should be the manager for the class, I'm really happy, and now I'm going to use my profession and use my passion to manage the whole team. Of course, this kind of passion to serve the Sangha is really wonderful, but it's important to remember not to get too carried away. Don't feel that by taking this position, you're like a prime minister of the country. You shouldn't feel in such a way. You shouldn't get too carried away by it. And then the next one, the ones seeking for benefits and the ones seeking for respect and the ones lacking in provisions, the ones who are very learned and the ones who have great merit, the ones who uphold precepts, the ones who uphold the sutras, the ones who uphold the shastras, and the mundane beings, the ones who already have seen the truth, the ones who are on the path of learning, the ones who are on the path of no learning, and the Shravakas, Pratikas, Bodhisattvas, Chakravartins. And then the next one is the 8 different stages of human beings, and there's the birth at the time of staying in the womb, and the time of birth, and then childhood, which is about 10 years of age, from the time of infants to 10 years of age, which is childhood, and then youth to 20, and then the time of being a young man or young woman to the time of 30, and then to the time of 40, that is at the prime age, and then 60 or 70 is the elderly, and after 70 it is considered as the old age. In terms of knowing entering the womb or not, there are the 4 types of categories of sentient beings as well. Knowing entering but not knowing abiding and exiting, that is Chakravartin. Knowing entering and abiding but not knowing the exiting, that is Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. Knowing the entering, abiding, and exiting, that is Bodhisattva. Not knowing anything is the mundane beings. Those are stated in the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra. Whenever you have time, also it is included in Abhidharma. Whenever you have time, you should read into it. Let's stop here today.